Prostitutes sneaking around the outsides over here. Now, victim number 2 was found nearby, right, on a street called Hanbury Street. It's a pretty dodgy street now. We've been there a couple of times and we've offered drugs a couple of times, so we're not going to go there, okay? But the second victim, her name is Annie Chapman, right? Now, Annie Chapman was seen quite late at night. She's talking to a very well-dressed gentleman. She had her hand on his chest, but not in a menacing way, right? Her hand was quite gingerly, seductively on his chest. And he was overheard to say, "Will you?" She was overheard to say, "Why, of course." And then they go off into the dark corners of the street together. That's another thing. That's kind of where the transactions happen, right? They didn't go into like a fancy brothel or anything like that. They went behind a wall or in a street corner or in a park, but in those kind of areas, right? Now, she is later found in a bit of a yard cutter's area. She also has been brutally murdered, right? Her throat has been cut from here to here. What position is she lying in? On her back, legs are up. Exactly. Dress ripped up quite high. Now, when they look later, they also see that she has been cut from stem to stern, right? This time, he's gone a little bit further. He's taken out her insides, all her guts and all that gore, and thrown them over her shoulder. So it's kind of a weird handbag, not very cool, right? Now, we say, and everybody, we've seen the serial killer TV shows, whatever, Dexter, all those things. Serial killers escalate, right? So they start, and then they get a little bit more crazy, until they kind of find their modus operandi, or what they really like to do, right? And we also say that a serial killer does not stop, ever, until they are either caught or until they are killed. So we can already see from victim number 1 to victim number 2, the cut of the throat is even more savage. The tear on the belly, even worse. And now all the guts taken out and quite chucked over her shoulder. Now, in that yard that she was found, we find a clue, right? Or we think we find a clue. It is a crumpled leather apron in the corner. Now, who used leather aprons back in 1888? The butchers, all right? So, a lot of the kind of suspects were considered to be butchers or other craftsmen. But now this area was big with the immigration, big with immigrants, because they couldn't go to West London, they were too poor. And there were actually a lot of Jews who settled here to escape the pogroms of Eastern Europe. They were being persecuted and murdered there. They're like, okay, we probably won't get persecuted and murdered in England, let's go, right? But a lot of Jews worked with their hands. So they were clockmakers, watchmakers, smiths, all that kind of stuff, involving leather aprons. So, the typical British public, it's much easier to blame the foreigner. They said, Jack the Ripper must have been a Jew, right? And so they just blamed a huge proportion of Whitechapel who happened to be Jewish at the time. Lots of persecution, kind of beating just random people up in the street thinking they were these evil killers. That's only after 2 murders. After the first murder, people weren't really too worried, because it happens all the time. After the second murder happens in a very similar way, the public starts to get a little bit upset, right? So that was victim number 2. Suspect number 2, all of the Jews, right? Suspect number 3 was a guy, a criminal called Leather Apron, right? That's his actual nickname, because he used to wear a leather apron, come after work, and mug some of the sex workers, right? So he'd come and steal their bag, or like rough them up a bit and steal whatever money they made. And that was a guy called Leather Apron. They figured that he may have escalated, right? And started actually killing the women that he has been assaulting so far. I'm not gonna tell you what, but these are, at the end, you tell me who you think it was, yeah? All right, perfect. Now, we're gonna carry on down there. We've had 2 murders in Whitechapel, right? East London has its own police force, right? Now, if you do the old city tour, they go more into detail about this, but London is actually divided into 3 cities, right? You've got Temple, which we don't really talk about. We've got the City of London, and then we've got East London. So the Metropolitan Police were the ones in charge in East London, and in the City of London, you have the City of London Police, right? Now, that's very important because the area that we're going to go to now is the site of victim number 4, who was killed in the City of London. That means now you got 2 police forces kind of arguing with each other, not sharing information. kind of letting Jack the Ripper get away with it, right? So there used to be a big wall around the city of London. It's not there anymore. So as we walk through that little passage, just imagine you're walking through the city gates. All right? Let's carry on.
This one is taller than that one. This one is taller than that one. This egg like. Actually, I was not seeing you.
Oh God, I had to walk. Let's increase our legs. And we plank up here.
Why do you think all the tour groups are here? Huh? Because it's a scene of a crime, right? But before we talk about that,